The Corvinus colony sat on the edge of Creshawl space, like a small brave light in endless dark. The planet had thin air, cold winds, and red dust that never stopped blowing. Humans came here many years ago with hope and hard work. They built farms, mines, and a big central dome. Other species joined them. Varethi traders with shiny crystal skin and tall, thin bodies brought goods and stories. Soon the colony grew strong enough to stand on its own. Then the Creshawl came. The Creshawl were big creatures covered in thick black plates, like armor. Their eyes glowed yellow, and their mouths had many sharp teeth. They believed strength came from never giving up and from having the most warriors. They saw the colony as weak because many different kinds lived together. They decided to take it. First they sent ships to block all ways in and out. No food, no medicine, no new people could arrive. The blockade lasted many months. People inside ate less and less. Children grew thin, hours, with tired eyes. The outer walls took hits from big energy guns every day. Smoke rose high and never cleared. Inside the last big fortress, the defenders still fought. The main gate stood tall, 30 meters high, made from strong metal and special layers to stop heat. It had held against everything so far. Cracks ran across it like broken glass, but it did not fall yet. Creshawl machines hit it hour after hour. The ground shook each time. Dust fell from the ceiling in small clouds. The Varethi soldiers stood on high walls with long rifles. They had good eyes and steady hands, but even they felt fear. Their leader, Thalzir, walked slowly along the line. He spoke in a low, calm voice to keep everyone steady. He said the gate would hold one more day, maybe two. He did not say what came after that. Humans worked below. Some carried boxes of bullets. Some fixed broken guns. Some cooked thin soup from the last bags of grain. Elias Kane was one of them. He looked like any other man, tall, wide. Shoulders short, dark hair. He wore old work clothes covered in dust. He lifted heavy crates when the machines stopped working. No one asked how he did it so easily. They thought he was just strong from years of hard jobs. Elias never talked much. He listened, he watched. He ate what little food came his way and went back to work. When others rested, he kept moving. When a wall section cracked and rocks fell, he stood under it and held the beam until others could brace it again. People said thank you. He only nodded. The Varethi called humans soft. They had no hard shells, no extra arms, no natural weapons. They broke easily in fights, or so the Varethi thought. They looked at Elias and saw another soft human who would run when the gate fell. They did not see the way his hands stayed steady, or how his eyes never looked afraid. Days passed slowly. The food ran lower. Water came from a small well that almost dried up. People whispered about surrender. Some said, better to live as prisoners than die here. Others said the Creshawl would not let anyone live. They would take the colony and kill everyone to show their strength. Thalzir called a meeting in the big hall under the dome. Only leaders came. Humans, Varethi, and a few others sat around a scratched metal table. Maps and screens showed the enemy lines. Red dots marked Creshawl positions. Blue dots showed the few defenders left. Thalzir pointed at the gate icon. He said it had 8% strength left. One good push, and it would break. He asked what they should do. A human woman named Mara spoke first. She led the farmers. She said they could not fight forever. They should talk terms, maybe give up land for peace. Thalzir nodded slowly. Others agreed. A young Varethi soldier shook his head. He said Creshawl never kept promises. They would take everything and more. Elias sat in the back. He did not speak. He stared at the map. His fingers rested on the table, loose and calm. No one looked at him. They thought he had nothing to say. Outside, the drums started again. Deep, heavy sounds rolled across the plain. Creshall warriors beat them to scare the defenders. The sound went through walls and into bones. People tried not to listen, but it was hard. Night came cold and dark. The colony lights stayed low to save power. Guards on the walls watched the enemy campfires. Thousands of yellow eyes stared back. The siege machines stood ready like sleeping monsters. The gate groaned under new hits. Sparks flew where metal met metal. Elias went down to the base of the gate alone. The space was dark and full of dust. He stood close to the huge slab. He put one hand on it. He felt the warmth from the hits. He felt the tiny shakes each time something struck the other side. He closed his eyes for a moment. Then he opened them again. He turned and walked back to the supply room. He picked up another crate of power cells. He carried it up the stairs without stopping. No one saw the small smile on his face. It was gone fast, like it never was there. Morning came gray and heavy. The Creshall moved. Their lines grew tight. Their machines rolled closer. The drums beat faster. The air smelled like burning metal and fear. Talzer stood on the wall. He looked down at his people. He saw tired faces. He saw hands that shook on weapons. He knew this was the last day. He raised his rifle high. He shouted words of courage in his language. The Varithi answered with weak cheers. The humans joined too. Their voices sounded small against the drums. Elias stood at the bottom again. He wore no armor, no helmet, no gun. His hands hung open at his sides. He looked up at the gate. The cracks had grown wider. Light came through in thin lines. The metal made small crying sounds. A loud blast hit the center. The gate bent inward. A piece broke off and fell. The defenders shouted. The Creshall roared back. Their front lines stepped forward, ready to rush in. Talzer turned to his men. He said, "Hold the line as long as you can. Until the end." He said they would make the Creshall pay high for every step. Elias did not move. He waited. He watched the gate. He listened to the metal. He felt the ground shake under his boots. The next hit came bigger than before. The whole gate shook hard. A long crack split down the middle. The supports screamed. Metal tore. The slab started to lean inward, slowly at first, then faster. Defenders ran back. Some fell. Others tried to shoot through the growing gap. Creshall warriors cheered loud. Their blades flashed in the red light. Elias stepped forward. He put both hands on the falling gate. His feet spread wide, his knees bent low, his back straightened. The gate weighed many tons. It should have crushed him. It should have pushed him flat. It stopped. The huge slab hung still. Fingers dug deep into hard metal. Muscles rose under skin. Veins stood thick and dark. All sound stopped for one long moment. Then Elias pulled. Dawn came slow and red over the burned plain. The sky looked like blood mixed with smoke. The Creshall army stood in perfect lines. Thousands of them. Their black plates shone under the weak light. Their yellow eyes stared forward, without blinking. Big siege beasts moved behind the front ranks, each one taller than 3 men put together. Their thick legs shook the ground with every step. Mobile guns rolled on wide tracks. Their barrels glowed hot from ready fire. The Overlord Vrakesh stood high on a raised platform made from stacked metal plates. He was bigger than any other Creshall. His armor had gold lines carved into it. His main blade arm looked long enough to cut a man in half from far away. He lifted that arm high. The drums stopped all at once. Silence fell heavy and thick. Then he brought the arm down fast. The attack began. Plasma lances shot forward in bright blue lines. They hit the walls hard. Chunks of stone flew outward. Smoke rose thick and black. On the high towers fired back. Their rifles made sharp cracks. Energy bolts flew down into the enemy ranks. Some Kreshal fell. Others stepped over the bodies without pause. More came forward to take their place. The main gate took the worst hits. Siege guns aimed right at the center. Each blast made the metal scream louder. Cracks grew wider. Sparks flew like angry stars. The ground under the gate trembled. A big section near the middle pushed inward about half a meter. The defenders on the wall shouted warnings. Some ran to new positions. Others stayed and kept shooting. Inside the fortress, people ran everywhere. Medics carried wounded on stretchers. Engineers tried to brace weak spots with metal beams. The air smelled like hot metal and fear. Children hid in the lower rooms. Their mothers held them close and whispered soft words. Falzir stood on the wall near the gate. He held his rifle tight. His crystal skin caught the flashes of light. He looked down at the charging enemy. Many there were. He knew the numbers did not lie. This time the gate would fall. He turned to his second in command. He said, "Prepare the inner defenses. We fall back when it breaks. We make them pay for every room." The second nodded and ran off to give orders. Down below, Elias Kane walked through the dust. He carried no gun. No armor covered his body. His old work shirt hung loose on his wide frame. His hands stayed open at his sides. He moved past running soldiers, past crying voices, past the smell of blood and sweat. No one stopped him. No one asked where he went. They had other things to think about. He reached the base of the gate. The space there felt small and hot. The huge slab loomed above him. It leaned inward now. The top edge hung over the defenders like a falling cliff. Metal groaned, loud and long. Pieces broke off and crashed down. Elias stepped around them without looking. A Varethi runner came up fast. He grabbed Elias by the arm. He said, "Go back to the keep. Orders everyone away from here. The gate will crush you when it falls." Elias looked at the runner. His eyes stayed calm. He said, "I stay here." The Varethi shook his head fast. He said, "You are human. You will die for nothing. Go now." Elias pulled his arm free gently. He turned back to the gate. He put one hand on the warm metal. He felt the shakes run through it. He felt the weight trying to come down. He closed his eyes for one breath. Then he opened them. Outside, the Kreshal charge grew louder. Their feet pounded the ground. Their war cries rose high and sharp. The front ranks reached the shadow of the gate. They raised blades and guns. They waited for the last push. Another big blast hit. The center supports snapped with a sound like thunder. The whole gate buckled hard. It started to topple inward, slow at first, then faster. Metal tore in long, ripping lines. The slab fell toward the inside. The defenders screamed and ran back. Some tripped and fell. Others pushed through doors to the next hall. Kreshal warriors roared. They stepped forward, ready to pour in like water through a broken dam. Their blades flashed. Their eyes burned with victory. Elias stood right under the falling gate. His boots stayed planted firm. His knees bent low. His back went straight. His hands came up fast. Both palms slapped against the falling metal. Fingers spread wide. They dug in deep. The ceramite cracked under his grip like dry earth. The gate stopped. 200 tons of steel and armor hung still in the air. The fall ended in one hard moment. The sound of tearing metal went quiet. The Kreshal charge froze mid-step. Their roars died in their throats. The Varethi on the walls stared down with open mouths. Falzir dropped his rifle. It clattered on the stone. Elias made no sound at first. His breath came steady. His arms did not shake. His legs held like rooted trees. Then a low growl came from his throat, soft and deep like far thunder. He pulled. Muscles rose thick under his skin. Veins stood out dark and hard. His shoulders rolled forward. His hips turned with power. The huge gate moved. Not open like a normal door. No. It swung sideways like a giant club. The bottom edge scraped the ground in a shower of sparks. The top edge cut through the air with a whistle. The swinging slab hit the front line of Kreshal like a falling mountain. Chitin plates shattered, bodies flew sideways. Siege beasts screamed as the edge crushed their legs and chests. Metal bent and broke under the force. Hundreds died in that first swing. Blood sprayed thick across the dust. The Kreshal ranks staggered back. Some tried to run. Others stood frozen in shock. Elias did not stop. He took one step forward, still holding the broken gate. He swung it again, this time higher. The edge caught a line of mobile guns. It smashed them flat. Barrels bent. Tracks tore off. The explosion came loud and bright. Fire bloomed across the plain. Virethi defenders cheered now. Their voices sounded surprised and wild. They fired down into the broken enemy lines. Their shots found easy marks. The Kreshal no longer moved in order. Chaos spread fast. Falzer stared down at the man below. He whispered one word in his own tongue. It meant impossible. Elias let the gate piece drop. It crashed to the ground and shook the earth. He stood straight. His hands steamed from the heat. His shirt hung in shreds. His skin showed cuts and burns, but he did not bleed much. His eyes looked forward, calm and clear. The Kreshal still had thousands left. They regrouped slowly. Their officers shouted orders. Vrakesh stepped down from his platform. He walked forward, through his warriors. His blade arm rose high. He pointed it at the human below. He made a deep clicking sound that carried far. It meant, this one dies now. Elias looked up at the Overlord. He flexed his fingers once. The joints popped loud in the sudden quiet. Then he took another step forward, toward the enemy, toward the thousands who still wanted to kill him. The defenders watched from the walls. They no longer ran. They stood and stared. The battle had changed in one moment. No one knew what would come next, but they all felt it deep in their bones. Something big had woken up, something that did not belong to fear or surrender. The silence after the gate swung lasted only a breath. Then the screams started. Kreshal warriors pulled broken bodies from under the fallen slab. Their yellow eyes went wide with shock. Some tried to stand. Others crawled away, leaving dark, wet trails. The front ranks broke apart like dry wood under a heavy boot. The siege beasts reared back, trunks raised high in panic. Their handlers pulled chains hard, but the creatures would not move forward anymore. Elias Kane stood in the open space where the gate once blocked the way. Dust settled around his boots. His torn shirt hung from his shoulders in strips. His chest rose and fell slow and even. Blood from small cuts mixed with sweat on his arms, but the wounds looked shallow. His hands stayed loose at his sides. Steam rose from his palms where the hot metal had touched skin. The Kreshal officers shouted orders. Their clicking voices rose sharp and fast. Warriors regrouped. They formed new lines behind the dead. They raised guns and blades, aimed at the lone human figure in the gap. Some hesitated. Their hands shook on triggers. They had seen what one swing did. They knew more could come. Vrakesh stepped through his ranks. He moved slow and sure. His gold-marked armor caught the red dawn light. His blade arm flexed once. The long edge gleamed clean and sharp. He stopped 10 meters from Elias. He looked down at the human. His many teeth showed in what might have been a smile or a snarl. He made a deep rumble in his chest. It carried across the plain like distant thunder. The Overlord spoke in common trade tongue. His voice sounded rough and wet, like gravel in water. He said, "Softskin, you broke my gate. You killed my warriors. You stand alone now. I will end you quick. Show me your fear first." Elias looked up at the giant. He did not answer right away. He flexed his fingers once. The joints made small pops. He took one step forward, then another. His boots crunched over broken ceramite and chitin pieces. He walked straight toward Vrakesh. No rush, no fear, just steady steps. The Kreshal line opened a path. They watched with wide eyes. Some lowered weapons. Others gripped tighter. Vrakesh raised his free arm. He signaled, "Hold fire. This one is mine." Elias stopped 5 meters away. He looked the Overlord up and down. He saw the thick plates, the long reach, the heavy muscles under armor. He saw the confidence in those yellow eyes. He nodded once to himself, like he understood something. Then he moved. It happened fast. Vrakesh swung his blade arm in a wide arc, fast enough to cut air. The edge whistled. Elias ducked low. The blade passed over his head, close enough to cut hair. He came up inside the reach. He drove one fist straight into the Overlord midsection. The hit landed hard. Armor cracked loud. Chitin under it splintered. Vrakesh staggered back 1 step. Air rushed out of him in a sharp hiss. The Kreshal gasped as one. The sound rolled through their ranks like wind over dry grass. Vrakesh roared, brought his blade down fast. Elias caught the arm with both hands. Metal rang against flesh. The blade stopped inches from his shoulder. Elias twisted hard. The joint popped. Vrakesh bellowed in pain. Elias pulled the arm sideways. The Overlord tried to resist. His strength was huge, but Elias matched it. He bent the arm back until the elbow joint gave way with a wet snap. Vrakesh swung his other fist. Elias let go of the broken arm. He stepped inside again. He drove an elbow into the Overlord's throat. The hit crushed windpipe. Vrakesh choked and staggered. Elias grabbed the good arm. He pulled it forward. He brought his knee up hard into the elbow. Crack! Bone broke through plate. The Overlord fell to one knee. His blade arm hung useless. His other arm dangled limp. Blood poured from his mouth in thick streams. He looked up at Elias. His eyes showed something new. Not anger, not pride. Fear. Elias stepped back. He looked down at the broken giant. He said nothing. He raised 1 foot. He brought it down on Vrakesh's chest. The plate caved in. Ribs snapped inward. The Overlord gasped once, then went still. Silence fell again, heavy and thick. The Kreshal stared at their dead leader. Bodies lay piled around the gate space. Smoke rose from ruined machines. The siege beasts lowed, soft and scared. Elias turned. He faced the enemy ranks. He took 1 step toward them. That was all it took. The front line broke. Warriors dropped weapons. They turned and ran. Some tripped over dead. Some pushed others aside. Officers shouted, but no one listened. Panic spread fast like fire in dry grass. Thousands of Kreshal ran back across the plain. Their feet kicked up red dust. Their cries mixed with fear and pain. Behind the walls the defenders watched. They stood frozen at first. Then cheers rose, loud and wild. Virethi voices joined human voices. They fired down at the fleeing enemy. Shots chased the runners. Some fell. Others kept going. Thalzir lowered his rifle. He stared at the man below. Face showed no expression, but his eyes looked different. He whispered to the soldier next to him. He said, "That is no soft skin. That is something else." Elias walked forward slow. He stepped over broken bodies. He picked up a dropped Kreshal blade. He tested the weight. He bent it across his knee. The metal snapped clean. He dropped the pieces. He kept walking. A group of Kreshal elites tried to stand. They formed a small circle. They raised shields and spears. They shouted challenges. Elias reached them. He grabbed the first shield. He pulled it free. The warrior flew with it. Elias swung the shield like a club. It smashed into the next elite. Helmets caved. Faces broke. Bodies dropped. The rest charged. Elias met them. He caught spears mid-thrust. He snapped shafts. He drove fists through armor. He tore limbs free. He moved like a storm, quiet and unstoppable. More Kreshal ran. Few stayed to fight. Those who did died fast. Elias left a trail of broken plates and dark blood. He did not shout. did not roar. He just kept moving forward. From the walls, the Virethi watched in silence now. Their cheers faded. They felt cold in their chests. They had fought many wars. They had seen strong fighters. They had seen killers. This was different. This was a force that did not tire, that did not slow, that did not care about pain or numbers. One old Virethi soldier lowered his head. He spoke soft words in his tongue. It meant the end has come. Not for us, for them. Elias reached the first line of siege beasts. The creatures backed away. Their handlers fled on foot. Elias jumped onto the nearest one. He drove both fists into its skull. Bone cracked. Brain matter spilled. The beast fell hard. It shook the ground. Elias jumped to the next. He repeated the strike. The third beast tried to charge. He stepped aside. He grabbed a leg. He pulled. The joint tore free. The creature screamed and fell. He moved on. Behind him, the plain filled with dead Kreshal. Banners lay trampled. Guns sat silent. Machines burned. The blockade ships high above started to move. Some turned away. Others stayed, but their guns went quiet. The defenders opened the side gates. Small teams ran out. They gathered weapons. They helped wounded. They stared at the lone figure walking through the wreckage. They did not approach him. Not yet. Elias stopped in the middle of the broken field. He looked around. He saw the running enemy. He saw the burning machines. He saw the quiet guns. He looked back at the fortress. He saw faces on the walls, watching him. He raised one hand. Not in salute, not in victory, just a small lift of palm. Then he turned. He walked back toward the broken gate space. His steps stayed slow. His shoulders stayed straight. His hands hung open again. The sun climbed higher. The red light turned gold. Dust settled slow. The day felt new and strange. And somewhere in the minds of every watcher, the same thought grew clear and cold. This human had cracked more than a gate. Cracked their idea of what war could be. The plain stretched wide under the rising sun. Red dust hung thick in the air like smoke from a slow fire. Kreshal warriors ran in every direction. Their once perfect lines turned into scattered groups. Some threw down heavy weapons to run faster. Others looked back over their shoulders with wide yellow eyes full of new fear. The siege beasts lumbered away, dragging broken chains. Their handlers rode on top, whipping them to move quicker. The mobile guns sat abandoned, barrels still hot, but silent. Elias Kane walked forward through the chaos. His boots left deep prints in the soft ground. His torn shirt flapped loose around his chest. His arms hung easy at his sides. Small cuts on his knuckles leaked slow drops of blood that mixed with dust and turned dark. He did not run. He did not shout. He moved steady, like a man walking home after a long day. A squad of Kreshal elites turned to face him. They wore thicker plates with red marks on their shoulders. They carried long pole weapons tipped with glowing energy blades. They formed a tight half-circle. Their leader clicked sharp orders. They advanced together, shields raised high. Elias met them halfway. He stepped into the gap between two shields. He grabbed the first pole. He yanked hard. The warrior holding it flew forward. Elias met him with an open palm to the faceplate. The helmet caved inward. The warrior dropped limp. Elias twisted the pole free. He snapped it across his knee. The energy blade flickered out. He threw the broken shaft aside. The others charged. Elias ducked the first swing. He caught the second blade midair with bare hands. The energy edge burned skin, but he did not let go. He pulled the weapon toward him. The warrior stumbled forward. Elias drove a knee into the midsection. Armor cracked. Ribs gave way. The warrior gasped and fell. Elias took the blade. He bent it until the core snapped. Sparks flew. He dropped the ruined weapon. Another elite lunged from the side. Elias turned fast. He grabbed the incoming arm. He twisted it behind the back. He pushed forward. The joint popped. The warrior screamed. Elias released and shoved. The body flew into two others. They crashed together in a heap of plates and limbs. Elias stepped over them. He kept walking. More came. Small groups rushed him from different sides. Some fired plasma pistols at close range. Bright bolts hit his chest. His skin smoked, but did not break. He walked through the fire like it was rain. He reached the shooters. He took their guns one by one. He crushed the barrels in his fists. Metal bent easy. He threw the broken pieces away. The warriors backed up fast. Some turned to run. He caught the slowest ones. He lifted them by the neck plates. He slammed them together. Their heads cracked loud. They fell still. From the fortress walls the defenders watched in growing silence. Varethi soldiers lowered their rifles. They stared without blinking. A young human fighter named Jax stood next to Thalzir. He whispered low. He said that man should be dead 10 times over. Thalzir did not answer. His crystal eyes stayed fixed on the figure below. Elias reached a cluster of siege machines. 3 big walkers stood together. Their legs thick as trees, their cannons pointed high. They had stopped moving. Their crews had fled. Elias climbed the first one. He grabbed a support strut. He pulled himself up. The metal groaned under his weight. He reached the cockpit hatch. He tore it open with both hands. The pilot inside screamed. Elias pulled him out. He dropped the body to the ground below. The walker rocked. Elias sat in the seat. He looked at the controls. He did not understand the symbols. He did not need to. He gripped the main lever. He pushed forward hard. The walker lurched. It took one step, then another. He turned it toward the fleeing Kreshul. He drove it into their ranks. Legs crushed bodies. Armor plates flew. The walker stomped forward unstoppable. Elias steered it like a living thing. He aimed for the biggest groups. He let the machine do the work, while he watched calm. Behind him another group tried to flank. They came from the left with heavy launchers. They fired rockets. Bright trails streaked toward him. Elias jumped from the walker seat. He landed hard on the ground. The rockets hit the machine behind him. It exploded in a ball of fire. Shrapnel rained down. Elias stood up. He brushed dust from his arms. He walked toward the launchers. The crew saw him coming. They dropped their weapons. They ran. Elias chased slow but sure. He caught one. He lifted him high. The warrior kicked and clawed. Elias squeezed. The plates cracked. The body went limp. He dropped it. He moved to the next. The rest scattered like leaves in wind. High above the blockade, ships watched their sensors. Screens showed red alerts. Losses climbed fast. Captains argued in tight voices. Some wanted to fire orbital strikes. Others said no. The humans stood too close to their own troops. Friendly fire would kill more than it saved. One ship turned away. Engines flared bright. It left orbit. Others followed slow. The fleet broke apart, piece by piece. On the ground, Elias kept moving. He found a line of supply wagons. Big carts pulled by smaller beasts. They carried food, weapons, spare parts. He walked up to the first wagon. He grabbed the side. He lifted. The whole thing rose off the ground. Beasts panicked. They pulled against the harnesses. Elias tilted the wagon. He dumped crates onto the dirt. Food packs burst open. Weapons clattered. He dropped the wagon. It crashed down and broke apart. He moved to the next. He lifted again. He threw it sideways. It rolled over warriors who tried to hide behind it. Bodies crunched under the weight. Screams rose, short and sharp. Then quiet. The Kreshul morale shattered completely. Officers no longer shouted. Warriors threw down arms. They ran blind. Some headed for the distant hills. Others tried to reach the landing zones where dropships waited. Elias followed the largest group. He did not hurry. He let them tire themselves, stragglers. He broke them quick. He left the rest to flee. Thalzir finally spoke from the wall. He said, "Enough. We must help him. He turned to his soldiers. He gave orders. Small teams formed. They ran out through the broken gate space. They gathered fallen Kreshal weapons. They helped injured defenders. They kept distance from Elias. They watched him work. Elias reached the center of the plane. A big command tent stood there. Flags hung limp. The Overlord banner torn and dirty. He walked inside. The tent was empty. Papers scattered. Maps burned at the edges. He picked up one sheet. It showed colony plans, attack patterns. He looked at it for a moment. He crushed it in his fist. He dropped the ball of paper. He stepped outside. The sun stood high now. Heat rose from the ground. Waves danced in the air. He looked around. Dead lay everywhere. Machines smoked quietly. The sounds of battle faded. Only wind moved dust across the field. He turned back toward the fortress. He walked slow. His steps stayed. Even his hands hung open again. Blood dried dark on his skin. Cuts closed slow. His breathing stayed calm. Defenders gathered at the gate space. They stood in silence as he approached. Some raised hands in greeting. Others lowered heads in respect. Thalzir walked forward. He stopped a few paces away. He looked at Elias. He said, "You saved us all." Elias met his eyes. He nodded once. He said, "It needed doing." Thalzir looked past him at the broken plane. He said, "They will not come back soon." Elias said, "Maybe not today." He walked past Thalzir. He entered the fortress. People moved aside for him. They watched him go. No one spoke loud. Whispers followed soft and quick. He found a quiet corner near the supply room. He sat on a crate. He leaned back against the wall. He closed his eyes for the first time since dawn. His body stayed still, but his hands rested loose on his knees. Outside the plane grew quiet. The wind carried away smoke. The red dust settled slow, with cheers or songs, but with the simple, heavy steps of one man walking home. And in every mind, the same truth took root, deep and cold. What they saw today was not just strength. It was doom, wearing human shape. 2 weeks passed slow after the battle. The red dust settled into thin layers over the plain. The broken machines rusted quiet under the sun. The Kreshal dead lay where they fell, until teams came out to bury them, in long rows. The colony people worked hard to fix walls, clear rubble, rebuild what they could. Food ships arrived from allied worlds. Supplies flowed in again. Children ran in the streets once more. Their laughter sounded strange after so much silence. The fortress stood open now. No gate blocked the way. A wide crater marked the spot where the huge slab once stood. Twisted metal pieces lay scattered around the edges, like broken teeth. People walked past the crater every day. They looked down into it. They remembered what happened there. Elias Kane went back to his old work. He hauled crates from landing pads to storage rooms. He lifted boxes when loaders broke. He carried water tanks across the yard when pipes still leaked. No one asked him to do these things. Hands looked the same as before. Thick, calloused, steady. He wore a fresh work shirt. It stayed clean for half a day, then got dusty again. He ate in the common hall. He sat alone most times. Others watched him from other tables. They spoke low when he passed. The Varethi veterans gathered at night. They sat around small heaters in the outer yard. The air turned cold after dark. They wrapped thin cloaks around their crystal bodies. They passed a warm drink in metal cups. They talked about the old days. They talked about other wars. They always came back to that morning. One old Varethi named Kael'thor leaned forward. His voice stayed soft. He said, "I saw many strong ones in my time. I saw beasts with iron skin. I saw machines that never stopped. I never saw anything like him. He moved like water finds the lowest place. No waste, no pause, just forward." Another named Lyra Ven nodded slow. She said his hands tore ceramite like paper. "I thought our walls were strong. I thought Kreshal armor was." Stronger. Now I know nothing is strong enough when he decides otherwise. They looked toward the supply yard, where Elias worked late under floodlights. He lifted a heavy generator alone. The machine should have needed 4 men or a crane. He set it down gentle. He wiped his hands on his pants. He walked inside without looking back. Thalzer joined them sometimes. He sat quiet at first. He listened more than he spoke. One night he finally talked. He said, "I gave the order to fall back. I thought we would die inside the keep. I thought the Kreshal would take everything. Then I saw him stand under the gate. I thought he would die first. I was wrong." Kael'thor asked, "What is he?" Thalzer shook his head slow. He said, "Not augmented, not gene-changed, not cybernetic. I asked the medics. They checked him after. No implants, no extra organs. Just human. Just more human than we knew possible." Lyra then said the stories spread fast. Traders carry them to every port. Refugees tell them in waiting lines. Whisper them in deep space. They no longer call him Elias Kane. They call him Gate Smasher, World Breaker, the Unyielding One. But the name that sticks most comes from us. She paused. She looked into the heater flame. She said, "Terran Doom." The others nodded. They repeated the words low. Terran Doom. The sound felt heavy in the night air. Traders came through the colony more often now. They brought news from far systems. Kreshal ships pulled back from many borders. They spoke less of conquest. They spoke more of caution. In one port, a Kreshal captain met a human merchant. The captain asked about the man who broke their siege. The merchant smiled wide. He said, "You mean the one who cracked your best gate barehanded?" The captain clicked his teeth, nervous. He said, "Yes, that one." The merchant laughed. He said, "We have many like him, some quieter, some louder. But when you push too hard, one always steps forward." The Kreshal captain left fast. He did not ask more questions. In the colony, council met again. They talked about defenses. They talked about alliances. They talked about thanks. Mara, the farmer leader, stood up. She said, "We owe him everything. He asked for nothing. He wants no medal, no rank, no parade. Let us leave him in peace. Let him work. Let him rest. That is what he chooses." Everyone agreed. They did not bother Elias with speeches or gifts. They let him be. One evening, a young human boy named Terran followed Elias to the storage yard. Terran was small, with big eyes and quick feet. He watched Elias stack crates for a long time. Then he stepped forward. He said, "Mr. Kane, can I ask you something?" Elias set down a box. He turned. He looked at the boy. He said, "Sure." Terran swallowed hard. He said, "How did you do it? How did you hold the gate? How did you fight all of them?" Elias thought for a moment. He rubbed one hand over his knuckles. He said, "I got angry." Terran frowned. He said, "Just angry?" Elias nodded. He said, "Yeah. Sometimes anger makes the body do things it should not. Sometimes it forgets limits. Sometimes it forgets pain. I saw my friends on the wall. I saw children hiding. I saw the gate falling on all of us. Anger took over after that." Terran looked at Elias's hands. He said, "Will you teach me to be strong like you?" Elias smiled small for the first time. It looked tired but real. He said, "Strength is not in hands alone. It is in what you care about. Protect what matters. When you do that, the rest comes." Terran nodded, serious. He ran off to tell his friends. Elias watched him go. He picked up another crate. He carried it inside. The lights flickered low. The colony settled into quiet night. Far out in space, the stories grew. They changed shape with each telling. Some said Elias lifted the entire fortress. Some said he tore a Kreshal ship from orbit with bare hands. Some said he still walked the plane at night, looking for more enemies. The truth stayed simple. Gathered. They looked at battle recordings. They studied the moment the gate stopped. They studied the moment Vrakesh fell. They spoke in low clicks. They said, "Never siege a human world without care." They said, "Always leave one path open." They said, "If you close every door, he will make his own." And when he does, it ends fast. One gray-haired Creshall veteran stood up. He said, "Remember this. If you hear the words Terran doom, run. Do not fight. Do not stand. Do not look back. Just run." The others clicked agreement. The room went quiet. Back on Corvinus, Elias finished his shift. He walked to the edge of the crater. He looked down into the dark space where the gate once stood. He picked up a small piece of ceramite. He turned it over in his fingers. It felt light now. He tossed it away. It clinked against other pieces. He turned back. He walked toward the living quarters. Lights glowed warm in windows. People ate, talked, laughed inside. He passed them without stopping. He found his small room. On the bed. He took off his boots. He lay back. He stared at the ceiling. Outside, the wind blew soft across the plain. It carried no drums, no plasma fire, no screams, only quiet. And in that quiet, the colony healed slow. The walls rose again. The fields turned green. Ships came and went. The stars looked the same as always. But every veteran who saw that day carried the memory close. They carried the sight of one man standing alone. They carried the sound of metal breaking under human hands. They carried the new truth burned deep. Humans were not soft. They were patient. When pushed far enough, they became something else, something unstoppable, something that ended wars with bare hands. And when the whispers spread to new worlds, the same warning traveled with them. If you ever siege a human place, leave one gate standing, because if you do not, he might come through anyway, and then it is over.